Hello and welcome. You're watching NewsX with me, Devika Devan. There was plenty of drama after India lifted the Asia Cup trophy, or in fact they didn't, but metaphorically speaking, they won the final by defeating Pakistan by 5 wickets on Sunday. The Indian team refused to collect the winner's trophy for their individual medals at the presentation ceremony. For those wondering why, well, because Asia Cricket Council, or the ACC chief, is a man called Mohsin Naqvi. He insisted that he must give away the trophy. However, the Indian team refused to accept the trophy from him particularly because the ACC chief Mohsin Naqvi is also the Pakistan Cricket Board chairman and the Interior Minister of Pakistan. The ceremony was delayed by over an hour before it wound up without a trophy presentation. While India maintained its dignity, staying focused and committed to its professionalism at the Asia Cup 2025 without resorting to these cheap theatrics, Pakistan, however, opted for petty remarks and actions. India's stance was clear, whereas Pakistan's unsportsmanlike attitude was evident in its behavior. These are some of the reasons why I've just made that statement. Let's begin by putting out the first photograph. Here on your screens, you see provocative gestures to denying the trophy to winners. Pakistan has not shied away from dialing up the theatrics on the field. Tensions had been running high after the two previous matches between India and Pakistan in the competition saw political posturing and aggressive on-field behavior. Mid intense cricketing action, a moment from Pakistan pacer Haris Rauf has become the biggest talking point, one that has stirred criticism and debate far beyond the scoreboard. During the 21st September clash between India and Pakistan, Rauf turned towards the crowd and flashed a 6-0 gesture while mimicking a fighter jet. The moment carried, of course, added weight because Rauf had already been heard chanting 6-0 during the training sessions on the eve of the match, reminding fans of Kohli's famous 6 against him in the 2022 T20 World Cup. The high-voltage Asia Cup 2025 final between India and Pakistan also saw tempers flare, with Haris Rauf once again back in the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Despite being fined earlier in the tournament by the ICC for his provocative plane crash celebration aimed at Indian fans, the Pakistani pacer appeared to disregard the penalty as he repeated the gesture during Sunday's clash. The incident unfolded in only the second over of the innings, moments after Abhishek Sharma's departure. While the television broadcast did not capture Rauf's actions, several fans have recorded the clips from the stadium stands, and these quickly surfaced on social media. The controversy comes only days after Rauf was fined 30% of his match fee for making the same gesture during the Super 4 clash between the two arch rivals. Their punishment was meant to act as a deterrent, but his latest actions suggest otherwise, with Rauf repeating the gesture multiple times as an act which is borderline crossing the line of sporting spirit. He indulged in unnecessary drama during the 21st September match against India and celebrated his half-century then with a gunfire gesture. The International Cricket Council gave Farhan an official warning, but no financial penalty. Farhan had defended his case in ICC's hearing and claimed that he is from the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa region and the gun celebration is a tradition from there. Apart from cricket, even Pakistan's under-17 football team tried some animated gestures during a South Asian Football Federation tie in Sri Lanka recently, which also created a huge uproar during a hotly contested match between the arch rivals in Colombo, which India, by the way, won 3-2. Pakistan's Mohammad Abdullah did a controversial tea-sipping celebration after he scored his team's equalizer. Abdullah, after converting a penalty, ran to the corner of the field, sat down and in a unique celebration with his teammates seemed to mimic drinking tea. Abdullah's post-goal antics captured limelight and drew in widespread criticism. Meanwhile, after the match, the Asia Cup match, Pakistani skipper Salman Ali Agha was visibly disappointed at the presentation ceremony with the outcome of the match and the team's performance, particularly with his batting order. However, what caught the attention of the crowd present at the stadium and fans watching the game on TV sets across the world was Agha's frustration on losing the match to India. He was handed the Asia Cup runner-up check during the post-match ceremony by one of the guests, but he threw away the check after receiving it. And that's just some of what's happened in the past few weeks, as India has clashed with Pakistan on numerous occasions and on numerous grounds across the world. Is that right? Is that wrong? That's the debate we take forward. I have with me Adit Kothari, foreign affairs expert, Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, and Sushil Doshi, sports commentator, with us as well. Let me begin with Adit Kothari. Adit, I just want to understand firstly from your perspective, the fact that Haris Rauf does a particular gesture and he's fined for it already, and he repeats that gesture at the final, that clearly indicates that Pakistan was in this more for the theatrics. I know that a lot of people will come and say, oh, but see, India did it as well. Jasprit Bumrah did it as well, right? When Haris Rauf got out. There are people who are already criticizing the way India's victory in the match is being compared to Operation Sindoor. People are saying, why are you doing that? That's disrespectful to the game. But at the end of the day, somewhere in your perspective, do you feel that somewhere someone has to be taught a lesson? And how difficult is it to always take the moral high ground in these situations?
So, Devika, I think, taking the moral high ground is always very difficult. I mean, India has always been demonstrating a lot of spine when it comes to that. We've always, demonstrated that, there is a key difference between how Pakistan conduct themselves and how Indians conduct themselves, and we've kept to a very high standard. You'll recall in 1986 when Javed Miandad made all sorts of taunting chants and gesture to Kiran More, right through that into, say, 2000s, where you had the Waqar Yunuses of the world, Shahid Afridis of the world, saying all sorts of things, which basically portray a very pungent sort of Islamic othering kind of a sense. And all of this is culturally conditioned within every Pakistani. There's in Pakistan there is a curriculum taught in every school which is called the Pakistan Studies. Now that Pakistan Studies basically depicts Hindus in a very backward sense. It depicts them as a very treacherous community, and that is what is taught to young children. So impressionable minds grow up believing that the Hindus on the other side are basically treacherous and backward people, and they must be shown a lot of contempt. So if that is the kind of environment somebody grows in, when they become adults, it is automatic that they will only display that kind of that hatred and Islamic othering. So given all of that history, what they are doing today is only a manifestation of their past. DGISPR was set up in the late 1940s with a single goal for every Pakistani to worship its Pakistani establishment, which is why the most liberal of the Pakistanis that we also come across, you will find them providing cover fire to the Pakistani establishment, which uses asymmetrical warfare, which uses terrorism as a state policy. So, the problem is much more deep rooted than what we see on the sporting field. It is much more sort of ingrained within a Pakistani DNA, Devika.
Okay, all right. Gautam Mukherjee, your thoughts on the same as well, firstly. I just want to understand from you, do you think that this was just, extremely unsporting, and how exactly do you feel India then should have reacted to some of these gestures?
Well, at the moment, Devika, they are in tatters and ruins, and they are driven by jealousy and hate when it comes to India. In this particular cricket tournament, they lost 3 times, each one very, very easy to see that they were no match. Their team was nothing up to the mark compared to India. And this must leave them very frustrated. Within the country, they've got great troubles with breakaway movements in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, in Balochistan, in Sindh. there'll be nothing left of them except West Punjab. Then they tell themselves a lot of lies, all about how they won Sindoor, how many planes they knocked down. They're dancing around with Trump, thinking that they're accomplishing something, and in the process, they're annoying their ironclad brother and friend, China. And China is slowly changing policy with regard to both India and Pakistan. So it is a horrendous situation for them. And, we just have to endure this while we watch the end game for Pakistan. Devika.
Okay, all right. Sushil Doshi, bringing you into the conversation. Sushil, Mr. Doshi, I want to understand from you, how exactly is the sporting world reacting to some of the controversies that have taken place at the Asia Cup? I know a lot of conversation is now going online about how most of the decisions were not organic, that perhaps the BCCI was giving some sort of mandates to the players on how they need to really proceed as far as this particular tournament is concerned. But firstly, I just want to understand from you, how is the world of sports really reacting to everything that's happened, with players refusing to shake hands, with players refusing to accept trophies, with the ACC chairman going away with the trophy altogether?
No, well, I have been talking to a few cricketers, both in India and from abroad, and I have learned from them that what they say is that Pakistan is totally getting inferiority complexes against Indian cricketers. They have been losing consistently in all departments, not only in cricket, but in other games also. Hockey, football, kabaddi, tennis, they are getting virtually, thrashed by India everywhere, all around. So they think that they are still living in the past, when they used to beat India, when Imran Khan and Wasim Akram and Zahir Abbas were there. They were a superior side at that time, and they had a lot of victories against India. They think that it's birthright that they will always beat India. But the problem is that Indian cricket has evolved, and now Indian cricket is almost at the top of the world cricket. So India is number one in T20 cricket, we know, and now India is number one in Asian cricket also. So they should realize that they are inferior side to India. The problem is that when they lose consistently, they try to give vent to their anger in these hilarious ways. People are laughing around. The way they are behaving, it's very uncalled for, and it's very unsporting, as you rightly put it. I think what they have to do is to evolve themselves, improve their quality of game. And India, as we all know, are far superior 1-to-1. I mean, if you can take, if you can, compare them 1-to-1, India is much better than their side. And they have been outclassed in all departments of the game, in all three games, and getting thrashed in all three games, it has to be said that they really tried to compensate, and they tried to put a fight in the last game. But that wasn't enough, because India shows character. And character comes when you are educated, when you are technically superior, and you've got self-confidence, and you've got experience. So what they lack is experience, self-confidence, and also the will to win. They have got the will to win, but they don't have the quality to get the victories. But India is winning all the way, and that is what making them angry. And when you are in anger, you do all kinds of these things, which is very laughable all over the world. And people, I've been talking to some of the cricketers, and they said it's laughable the way they are behaving. 6-0, they are trying to show that 6 airplanes were shot down. I mean, what is the purpose when you're playing cricket? What is the purpose of doing such things? And ultimately, when you try to do such things, you put pressure not on opposition, but on yourself. Like Haris Rao was the victim when Virat Kohli hit those 2 sixes and brought them to the knees, And this time around also, he was the weakling, because he tried to put pressure on Indians, but he put pressure on himself. And ultimately, his over was the deciding factor, as we all knew. So they have to improve culturally. at culture comes when you're educated. Most of the Pakistani cricketers, the way they behave, the way they talk, they don't look very educated. And the problem, comes very clearly when you're not educated. You behave in such a manner that pleases some of the people, but it doesn't sound well when people all over the world, they see you live on television. It's a laughable stock.
Okay, bringing Adit back into the conversation. Adit, there is, like I said, some people are also saying, but India also did this, but India also did that India refused to shake hands with the team after the first match, or that India, or that Jasprit Bumrah also repeated a similar gesture. But Adit, there has to be, and help me with this, how do we clarify to the public and ensure that they understand that there is a complete difference between India, the Indian team, taking a call, pardon me, that they do not want to shake the hands of Pakistani players or of anyone to do with Pakistan, that they want to be a part of a global tournament, that they will play against Pakistan because they happen to be a part of that tournament. But beyond playing the game, they don't want to exchange any sort of pleasantries, versus the Pakistanis then coming back to the field and coming with these gestures. In a way, it's the Pakistani team that started all of this, that brought that disgrace to the tournament.
So Devika, I think both Gautam Da and Mr. Doshi, I think, pointed out clearly that the Pakistanis are in absolute disarray. They are completely frustrated with the grand scheme of things happening both internally within the country and the kind of external treatment they are being meted with, and that is what was demonstrated on the cricket field as well. So when we speak about how Haris Rauf or anybody else is reacting, and how social media is basically calling the shaking of hands as the violation of the spirit of the game. A lot of social media posts have come out saying that if you don't shake hands, you're basically flouting the fundamental spirit of the game. The spirit of the game was flouted back in the 70s and 80s, where various teams actually refused to shake hands with the South African team. And that was because the South African team had breached that red line of, indulging in othering with their own sort of players at that point. And we have decided that the red line for us is terrorism. Asymmetrical warfare, terrorism, Islamic jihad cannot go on. And you have the same pedigree of players who are playing the sport and then going back and providing cover fire to their armies, to their mujahids, who are basically causing a lot of hurt on India. So you have the Shahid Afridis, you have the Imran Khans, you have the Waqar Yunuses of the world. We will all recall from 2022, right after the World Cup between India and Pakistan, the game. There is a video clip where he is seen celebrating Rizwan sitting and reading the namaz on the field and saying that he did it sitting in India, in between all of the Indians. So it was like almost demeaning them. And that is the kind of mindset that they essentially come with. So, the one point that I disagree with Mr. Doshi is that the current lot are uneducated. I don't think education or uneducation is the problem. I think it's the generic mindset which is built and wired in a certain way, which makes them act, in this sort of a manner. You have Imran Khan repeatedly in the 1990s invoking Islamic supremacy, calling non-Muslims as kafirs. And that is the way he sort of, he rallied his troops to sort of, field and bat and bowl against various teams. So, blending that religiosity with sportsmanship, I think, is a very dangerous and a very lethal mix, which I think the Pakistanis need to sort of understand. There is an incident where Shahryar Khan, who used to be, Nawab Pataudi's cousin, he used to be the leader, he used to be the chairman of the PCB at one point, and there was a game which was happening in South Africa, I think, and Saeed Anwar comes to him and says that, Inshallah, today we are going to win because it's Jummah, it's Friday. And, when all of this happened and Pakistan lost and Shahryar Khan went to him asking him what happened, we lost. He said, we lost because we're not good Muslims. And that is why Allah punished us. So that is the kind of mindset that an average Pakistani possesses. And this is something which we need to recognize and call out and expose, which we failed as a collective society.
Okay, Gautam Mukherjee, your thoughts on the same as well. That's established that Pakistan is in disarray. But as far as the future of the sport is concerned, as far as the future of us playing against Pakistan in the future is concerned, your thoughts on the same? How do we now ensure that this doesn't impact or this doesn't set some sort of a precedent for future games, and that we do raise a strong protest to some of the gestures that have been made? Perhaps fines are not enough.
Well, we can make our protests. We have to go back to why we played this tournament at all, because it's an international tournament. If you refuse to play in an international tournament for whatever reason, you will then be barred from other international tournaments as a consequence. Excuse me. So, which is why we played. Now, that does not mean we've suddenly forgiven everything as far as Pakistan is concerned. And they would like to whitewash all their transgressions, this constant, policy of bleeding India with 1,000 cuts. But our red lines have been redrawn. Now we've said that terrorism will be answered with a blast right onto the sponsors of terrorism, as in Operation Sindoor, as in stoppage of the Indus Water Treaty, and so on. And in future, we really cannot do very much beyond civilized behavior such as fines and censure of players that behave badly on their side. This is something that is for them to think about. But the other point, Devika, is, Pakistanis think they have a patent on Islam. That is ridiculous. There are millions of Muslims all over the world who are perfectly reasonable people. You take Indonesia, you take the whole of the Gulf, you take the whole of North Africa, elsewhere. It is just a few people, in Pakistan, where they're trying to militarize the idea of Islam and talk nonsense on its behalf and give it a bad name. You've also got a few others, the Syrian rebels, the ISIS, and so on, but they all have a terrorist streak. All the ones who behave badly are terrorists, but they are a small minority of the Muslims of this world, and Pakistan should realize it.
Yes.
They are not representative of how Muslims behave generally.
Okay, I want to leave the last word with Mr. Sushil Doshi. Mr. Doshi, I want to understand from you, when we talk about the future of sports with Pakistan, playing with Pakistan, what does that look like?
No, I think it's very difficult until they improve in terms of political, miscarriages, as you can put it. Like terrorism is not the policy which they are adopting as a national policy to upset Indian apple cart, which is not right. And the world understands it. Not that the world does not understand it. They do understand, but the problem is that they are continuing with it. Maybe to please their own people, and they think that they are actually much better players than India. They are much stronger country than India. That is what they are fed with the wrong news throughout. But in the whole world, if you see, India is doing is to show to the people that we do not want to play this game, which is a game of gentlemen. Cricket is a game of gentlemen. And terrorism is not an activity which is called a gentlemanly activity. So if in such a gentlemanly game, if terrorism, some country apply, then they have to be put out of action. So India has firmly put it in front of the people of the world to boycott any such thing. And what they did is quite right. Bilateral series will not play. India will not invite Pakistan, and Pakistan will not go to Pakistan. But in a third country, cricket is not the only game. You can't do this that you can go out and play hockey. You can go out and play football. You want to compete them in, say, javelin throw against his country's person. Neeraj Chopra is right on top at the moment, and he wants to regain his Olympic medal again, but he has to fight the Pakistani. So if you want to compete in world tournaments, you have to go out and play outside India. So I think that is one of the compulsions in the modern world. Sports is the way of life. That it is one of the ways to show that you are a stronger country, and to show your might in sports is the way to show that you are mighty people. So I think what India is correctly doing is to avoid Pakistan going there and avoid Pakistan coming into our country. So which is quite the right policy. But at the same time exposing their weaknesses and their wrong policies to the world, and world is agreeing, like today, most of the people do agree that terrorism, whosoever does it, it generates from Pakistan. Most of the people who are from Pakistan are involved into terrorism all over the world, as we can find out. So this is being publicized quite properly, and India's policy there is quite right and up to the mark. And if Pakistan wants to, further the contest and further the improvement in sports again with India, they have to improve in their foreign policy of terrorism, and they have to avoid it if they want to remain in the world of gentlemanly world which is existing at the moment.
Yes. Okay, all right. On that note, thank you to all of our guests for joining us to take this conversation forward. We move on to some breaking news coming in. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has inaugurated the new address of Bharatiya Janata Party's Delhi unit at Deen Dayal Upadhyay Marg. The inauguration was done in the presence of Delhi Chief Minister Rekha Gupta, BJP National President JP Nadda and other senior leaders of the Delhi unit. The new building is an 825 square meter workplace with 2 basements, conference rooms, 300-seater auditorium, a canteen and a lot more. The new building is made using eco-friendly materials and is a massive upgrade from the current Delhi headquarters of the BJP. My colleague Manohar Kesri with us on the broadcast. Manohar, take our viewers to the details, please.
देखिए बिल्कुल दिल्ली में सरकार गठन के बाद दिल्ली बीजेपी जो प्रदेश की है उनके लिए एक बहुत बड़ी खबर है कि उनका एक अपना नया ठिकाना जो है 14 पंडित पंत मार्ग से अब नया ठिकाना 5 DT मार्ग पर होगा। प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी वहां पर मौजूद हैं और इस कार्यालय का उन्होंने उद्घाटन किया है। काफी अत्याधुनिक सुविधाओं से लैस है ताकि जो भी पार्टी के कार्यकर्ता हों या फिर नेता हों या फिर मीडिया के लिए प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस ऑर्गेनाइज करना हो, उन सारी चीजों के लिए सुविधाएं हैं ताकि आने वाले जो दिल्ली में कॉन्फ्रेंस का इलेक्शन होगा तो बेहतरीन ढंग से एक सुनियोजित ढंग से काम किया जा सके। तो ऐसे में कहेंगे बहुत बड़ी उपलब्धि दिल्ली प्रदेश के बीजेपी के लिए है और प्रधानमंत्री जो है उन तमाम कार्यकर्ताओं को संबोधित करने वाले हैं। जी
Right, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on the broadcast with those details. With that, we sip into a very short break.